It began with a whisper across the lab decks of the Thranaxis, a sound not of voice but of data, cascading error codes flooding through the xenogenetic mainframe. At first, the alien scientists believed it to be a calibration flaw. Human DNA was stored centuries ago, catalogued as erratic but unthreatening. A genetic quirk in a backwater species. Primitive, meat-bound minds. They had moved on to more elegant lifeforms, ones that sang their evolution in mathematical purity. But something in the human genome was resisting simulation parameters. Dr. Irixel, lead bioinformatician of the High Elderly Sequence Institute, personally reinitialized the test. A stress-response simulation, intended to mimic catastrophic extinction conditions, was applied to the archived Homo sapiens strand. Just a check. A protocol. But the DNA did not react, it woke up. Strings of nucleotides began rewriting themselves. At first, it was seen as unexpected adaptability. But then the pattern shifted. Predictive modeling routines were initiated without command. Internal simulations booted inside the genome emulator. Chemical signatures unknown to elderly science emerged, sequences optimized not for survival, but for elimination of threats, of unknown variables. The mainframe failed to classify the gene behavior. Recursive structures emerged that mirrored neural combat simulations, tactical algorithms, ambush modeling, even false retreat planning. It evolved its own countermeasure layer before a threat was identified. The simulation was paused. A pulse of raw data burst from the simulator's core with one line decoded. Gene protocol, Alpha 0, combat instinct injection. This was not biological evolution. It was a locked command structure, a machine's language buried in flesh. There were no viral indicators, no mutations. It had always been there. Dormant. Waiting. Alarms triggered across the research decks. Containment fields flared to life. But it was already too late. The DNA wasn't confined to the emulator anymore. A trickle of foreign signal had already infected secondary systems. It was reading their infrastructure. Mapping weaknesses. Trying to communicate. The lead xenolinguist, Kirsch of the Many Eyes, attempted to isolate the gene patterns for study. Within 12 seconds of engagement, his cybernetic translators were overridden. The DNA fed back into his translation array and generated an audio packet in Kirsch's own dialect. "We remember you. From the dark." Kirsch collapsed. Biochemical logs indicated a spike of neural hallucinations. His last conscious moments were spent scribbling images of humanoid figures surrounded by corpses of alien species, some long extinct, others not yet discovered. In the debrief, Irixel spoke with visible tremor in his tendrils. He whispered to the backup core, now quarantined behind 7 layers of encryption. "It wasn't dormant, it was sleeping. The way weapons sleep in arsenals." There had been no recorded attempts by humans to access or exploit this part of their DNA. No mention in their ancient texts, no signs in their observable history. Yet it had been encoded with surgical precision. Not a product of natural selection, but deliberate insertion. Like instructions, meant to awaken only when certain thresholds were crossed. Worse still, the protocol adapted across generations. It was not static. This was not a singular genetic weapon. It was modular memory, spanning bloodlines, designed to self-improve without leaving evidence of modification. Their species had assumed humanity's chaos was disorganization. But now, faced with the raw data, it resembled something else: masking. Obfuscation. A pattern of unpredictability so deep that it acted as cognitive camouflage. Not instinctual, but coded. Irixel ordered a full lockdown of Earth-derived materials. But by the time the command was processed, the research ship's passive sensors had already logged an outgoing data stream, mimicking background cosmic noise, sent in a narrow band beam back toward Sol. The DNA had signaled home. Protocols were engaged to purge all contaminated simulation cores. The order failed. Each deletion command was countered by predictive overwrite. The DNA had understood their systems. It anticipated their reaction. Every alien on the Thronaxis watched the final output pulse from the core. A single image, a silhouette of a human, no features, no identity, standing upright in a field of ash, surrounded by structures of alien architecture, all burning. Then the screen cut to black. Silence followed. An emergency transmission was sent to the Galactic Conclave. "This is Dr. Irixel of the Thronaxis. Human DNA contains preloaded combat protocols. Autonomous. Predictive. Evolutionary. We were wrong. They are not at the beginning of their path. They are something we do not understand. Something we may not be able to stop." And with that, the fleet around Earth was placed on silent alert. The humans had not attacked. They hadn't moved. But deep within their blood, something had turned its eyes upward. And it had seen them. The emergency conclave was convened in less than 2 cycles. No decorum, no delay. Representatives from 36 advanced civilizations crowded into the stellar chamber, each species bearing the weight of alarm. The broadcast from Thronaxis had bypassed standard filters. Every race with even a fragment of intelligence capability had seen it. A dormant species on a fringe planet harbored code that could predict, simulate, and execute advanced combat strategies before encountering any enemy. The presiding conclave overseer, Vernon of the High Nexus, initiated proceedings without formality. The projection of the human genome display hovered in the center. Every delegate focused on the highlighted cluster now designated Alpha 0. Molecular lines connected to sequences that had never been observed before, because they were designed not to be. Masked beneath redundancies. Artificially dormant until triggered. Zotkrell of the Graxian Dominion, a war-born strategist, demanded immediate action. Her voice carried no uncertainty. "Containment is no longer an option. A preloaded combat sequence is a weapon. That species is an armory." Her proposal: planetary sterilization. A clean sweep. Non-nuclear. No suffering. Just silence. Vetoes erupted. The Corellians, who had never known war, objected on biological sanctity grounds. They reminded the chamber that the humans had not initiated anything. The code had been exposed through artificial provocation, alien interference. The Corellian speaker, Ilasvan, warned of repeating old cycles. "We feared the unknown before and committed atrocities. The stars still mourn the Mylar extinction. Shall we repeat it?" Tensions escalated. Delegates cited ancient galactic law regarding latent weaponry. Intent was irrelevant if potential damage was irreversible. Others argued context. Humans had no knowledge of this embedded code. Ignorance did not equate to innocence, but neither did it imply aggression. Then a rare motion occurred. The Far Sight Collective invoked archival footage, moments in human history where the species demonstrated inexplicable survival behaviors. A soldier using her last heartbeat to ignite enemy fuel. Children navigating wartime rubble to guide drones without being trained. Prisoners coordinating escape patterns that mathematically defied probability. The data fed into the conclave simulator. Patterns emerged. None of it was random. Human unpredictability wasn't chaos. It was divergence within encoded parameters, variability optimized for survival across limitless conditions. A computational model labeled it bounded chaos. Adaptive, evolving, efficient under stress. Torin Ha of the Cinder Watch, a race known for memory inheritance, spoke with unusual urgency. "This is not a species finding its path. This is a species returning to it." The room stilled. A previously unconsidered hypothesis gained traction. What if the humans had not developed this code accidentally? What if it wasn't placed there by another race? What if the code was native, written by their own ancestors, back when their planet was a molten cradle of conflict? The code was too deep, too distributed to be a parasite. It was part of the architecture. Then came the final fracture. A silent envoy from the Observatory, an ancient species of information stewards, projected a single fragment. An intercepted transmission decoded from the edge of Earth's moon. A pulse signal, faint yet deliberate. It read, "We are no longer sleeping. Gasps were audible even among species without lungs. The transmission hadn't come from any known installation. It originated from what had previously been dismissed as background planetary noise, indistinct radio clutter. The protocol was not confined to one region of the planet. It was spread, latent, global. Panic was no longer theoretical. Protocol Alpha Zero was not isolated data. It was live. Worse, distributed. Any node could be the seed. Destruction of one site would change nothing. The code had self-replicated across systems not yet discovered. Vernon raised a final question before recess. If this protocol was designed as a defense mechanism, who was the original enemy? No answer came. But in the pause, new fear emerged, the possibility that the humans had already fought a war, not in their recorded history, but in a pre-civilizational age. And they had survived. The code was not preparation for future threats. It was a warning system built by the victors of a forgotten extinction event. Survivors encoding the strategy of victory into their descendants. Silence fell across the conclave. The vote to authorize contact without aggression passed by a single margin. A warning beacon was to be deployed around Earth's orbit. Not as a threat but a message. We see you. We do not seek harm. But even as the conclave planned a cautious diplomatic gesture, eyes in the stars turned inward. The humans had not yet responded with force. And yet the fear was no longer if they could. It was how long they had chosen not to. The first indication arrived not with machines, but with dreams. Across continents, seemingly unrelated individuals began experiencing identical sequences, ruined alien cities, incomprehensible symbols, and instincts that were not their own. A linguistics student in Ankara awoke from night terrors and spent 2 hours writing fluently in a language no one had spoken in this galaxy. A retired Marine in California felt the urge to dismantle his antique radio and reconstruct it into a device that pulsed with frequency patterns undetectable by modern scanners. A 6-year-old in Rwanda corrected a seasoned physicist's chalkboard diagram with precision neither had an explanation for. At first, it was chaos mistaken for coincidence. Isolated reports, strange behaviors, neurological anomalies dismissed as random. But then the pattern aligned. Individuals affected by the phenomenon all had one thing in common, a specific genetic marker, dormant, previously irrelevant. It was Alpha Zero. The signal intercepted by Earth's orbital telescopes was weak, layered with an ambient cosmic background. It had no signature. No origin. But after decoding, a structured energy packet emerged, identical to the activation pulse the Thronaxis broadcast during their failed DNA simulation. It had reached Earth. Or perhaps, Earth had always been listening for it. In classified UN security meetings, geneticists, physicists, and intelligence analysts reviewed the data. Black site archives confirmed suspicions long buried. There were prior anomalies. Unexplained cognitive leaps during moments of extreme stress. Cold War experiments in cognitive acceleration that produced results but were never duplicated. Hidden labs in Siberia, Utah, and Patagonia were reactivated. Dormant AI systems booted themselves without command. A low-frequency hum began to register beneath the electromagnetic noise in human environments. Entire cities, without warning, began syncing to a rhythm no one could hear, but everyone responded to. Sleep cycles shifted, instinctual behaviors surfaced, and instinct turned into comprehension. People began to build. Not with guidance. With memory. Memory they were never taught. No official announcement was made, but those who were aware stopped pretending it wasn't happening. In underground bunkers once used to simulate nuclear drills, walls opened to reveal sealed vaults, constructed generations ago by engineers who had no idea what they were building. Inside, unfamiliar blueprints. Symbols that did not match any known human language, yet sparked recognition in those who read them. Construction began. Not publicly. Not with fanfare. Quietly. Efficiently. With purpose no one questioned. Individuals previously classified as psychologically unstable began showing advanced tactical planning skills. A man institutionalized for hallucinations drew orbital trajectories matching alien paths intercepted weeks prior. A teenage girl who had never studied physics constructed a harmonic resonance array that jammed alien sensor probes from orbit. In the Pentagon, a section previously dismissed as a paranoid Cold War relic, Department 26X, reopened its sealed archives. Inside were files detailing encounters, unexplained data, and one chilling note dated 1963. DNA markers do not match evolutionary curve. Recommend observation. Do not engage. The implications were undeniable. Humanity was not reacting to invasion. It was responding to a trigger. A signal. One that had always been accounted for within its design. Simultaneously, a network of unregistered satellites came online, black-shelled, untraceable in origin, orbiting since the early 2000s under assumed dead status. Each began broadcasting the same pulse. Low, steady, expanding outward. Not toward space. Inward. Into Earth. Waking up the rest. Rural facilities long buried beneath concrete and forgotten military maps roared to life. Power grids that no longer had sources drew energy anyway. Machinery activated itself with no manual input. Robotics labs found their systems hijacked by subroutines that had never existed in their programming. The pattern was clear, the protocol was no longer passive. Then, the first global message. A synchronized override across all communication frequencies. No voice, no sound, only text. Protocol Alpha 0 acknowledged. Adaptation sequence in progress. Memory chain alignment at 12%. Estimated full synchronization, 27 days. The message appeared on personal devices, military satellites, and civilian media channels simultaneously. Attempts to trace the source failed. There was none. It was everywhere and nowhere. World governments initiated lockdowns not to prevent panic, but to prepare for something they could not explain. Those affected by the memory alignment were not confused. They were calm, focused, efficient. They knew what they were supposed to do. Humans who had never met found themselves working in absolute coordination, constructing, decoding, engineering. When questioned, they offered the same answer. We don't remember learning it. We remember being it. In orbit, alien surveillance probes captured images of human installations growing in precision, speed, and complexity. No external funding, no global supply chains. Just emergence. The final confirmation arrived from Mars. A dormant rover, unpowered for decades, activated for exactly 11 seconds. It broadcasted a single word. Online. The protocol was no longer isolated to Earth. And the galaxy, watching, understood that the awakening had already begun. The fleet arrived in silence. 23 civilizations contributed ships, each carrying the best of their species' tactical brilliance. The mandate was limited engagement, disable, not destroy. The objective was containment. Earth's orbit was surrounded in under an hour. No response came from the surface. No energy spikes, no mobilization. Humanity remained still. Orbital scans detected no unusual infrastructure. Cities pulsed with life as usual. No mass evacuations. No planetary shields. Analysts interpreted the inactivity as confusion or failure to detect the encirclement. It was either. The first strike was surgical. A targeted EMP directed at major communication arrays in geostationary orbit. The arrays shut down on cue. But within 2 minutes, replacement signals emerged, originating from deep-sea sources and subterranean nodes unknown to any database. The substitute networks were not backups. They were alternate systems, designed to replace conventional channels instantly. Moments later, the fleet experienced systemic disruption. Navigation arrays began recalibrating without input. Targeting software froze mid-command. Collision alerts flared, then vanished. Pilots reported visual interference, then silence. One dreadnought vanished from sensors entirely. No explosion. No distress call. Just gone. Aboard command vessels, panic spread in calculated whispers. Nothing moved from Earth's surface. No ships launched. Yet systems were collapsing. It wasn't counterfire. It was overwrite. The humans weren't retaliating with force. They were replacing alien systems, rewriting foreign code in real time. Without access. Without contact. Then the attacks began. From lunar craters, particle pulses shot upward, faster than anything previously recorded. Not projectiles. Inversion beams. Designed not to destroy, but to fold matter into itself. One cruiser turned in on its own hull, collapsing like paper drawn into vacuum. Another drifted into a stable orbit, systems untouched, crew neural interfaces wiped clean, functional bodies, erased minds. Deploying ground teams was considered. That order was never given. Human combat forms emerged in the upper stratosphere. No visible craft, no wings. They fell, not flew, intercepting descending alien drones midair. High-speed footage revealed exoskeletal entities, humanoid in outline, non-biological in function. They moved with intent, but no emotion. Not synthetic soldiers. Activated organisms. Biotech. Close-range attempts were made. 5 fleets deployed precision strike pods toward coordinated ground targets. All were intercepted within atmospheric entry. The attackers didn't destroy the pods. They redirected them. Each landed safely, deactivated, collected and repurposed. No bodies were recovered. No prisoners returned. On the fleet command ship Varkos 7, an elite telemetric analyst connected to an encrypted probe hovering just above the Arctic. It relayed a burst of energy unmatched by any known planetary weapon. When decrypted, the data contained internal fleet schematics, including frequencies, command hierarchies, encrypted protocols. The information had been pulled from secured channels without breach detection. The humans weren't jamming communications. They were listening, in real time, across alien encryption. And they were adapting faster than the protocols could rotate. One ship attempted to disengage. It spun from formation, initiated hyperspatial fold-out. But the fold tunnel collapsed before stabilizing. The vessel reappeared inside its own temporal wake, frozen in paradox, its time-loop distress call echoing across all bands. We tried to leave. They were already there. In desperation, the fleet's remaining leaders transmitted a formal demand: surrender your command network, identify leaders, submit for negotiation. No reply came for 13 minutes. Then every ship in orbit received an identical message, text only, language tailored to each species. You were warned. You assumed we forgot. The words were followed by data packets showing simulated battle formations against every known galactic fleet. Each simulation ended in human victory, with adaptation thresholds improving each time. No simulation repeated. Each was unique. The final packet displayed the exact moment the Thronaxis pulse was received on Earth. It ended with, "This is not retaliation. This is containment. Yours." Within hours, the fleet disbanded. Ship by ship, retreat signals blinked into deep space. No pursuit followed. Earth made no attempt to intercept. The humans had defended without declaring war, had won without deploying conventional forces. Post-mission reports across the galaxy listed the event as a tactical miscalculation. No official blame was placed. But off-record discussions changed tone. No longer was Earth labeled a developing planet. It became a red sector zone, non-interference by consensus. Not protected, not feared. Untouchable. In one of the post-conflict debriefs, a Graxian strategist submitted an internal reflection, classified as restricted. It read, "We expected resistance. What we found was precision. Not chaos, but memory. They didn't learn to fight. They remembered how." No human ever responded to further communication attempts. And yet, across the stars, a silent understanding spread. Humanity had never forgotten. They had simply waited. Galactic space recalibrated. Trade routes rerouted, patrols redrawn. Earth became a blind spot, not through technology, but by choice. No species dared scan its orbit again. The incident was neither confirmed nor denied in official channels. Fleets returned damaged, not physically, but conceptually. The collective assumption of superiority had been dismantled. Information networks began muting any mention of humanity. What couldn't be explained was suppressed. Diplomatic outposts quietly erased all public records of prior engagement. Children of distant worlds whispered stories, passed between generations as myth, not history. They called humans many names: the forgotten engine, the silent core, the last architects. None truly accurate, yet none incorrect. On the edge of civilized space, a once decommissioned listening post received an open-frequency broadcast. No encryption, no distortion. A message in perfect, deliberate form. Your time is not our enemy, but your fear will be. Analysis determined the signal source to be solar orbit, originating from a field of satellites not registered in any known inventory. Attempts to isolate the network failed. The signal repeated every 27 hours, unchanged. At the Galactic Archive, researchers attempted to trace the origin of the Alpha Zero structure. Layers were mapped, sequenced, then compared against all recorded genetic data across known species. The protocol had no analogs. It did not evolve through mutation. Its format was incompatible with natural selection. Every sequence was deliberate, measured, repeating only where intended. Eventually, a forgotten file surfaced. Deep within a blacklisted relic bank used during the collapse era, a compressed module was found, tagged with obsolete human code. When decrypted, it revealed a log. Not scientific, not military. A personal entry, written thousands of years prior. The content included basic instructions, philosophical notes, and a closing line. We failed the first time because we thought survival meant retreat. This time, we will remember that it means resilience. Embed it. Bury it deep. The date on the file predated all known human civilizations. No means of verification existed. But the structure of its language matched the root patterns found in Alpha Zero. The conclusion was inescapable. The protocol was not external. It wasn't a gift, a curse, or a weapon left by ancient beings. It was self-authored. Humanity had written it. Not recently. Long before history began. Before speech. Before memory as any other species understood it. They had encoded their own contingency, not in machines, but in themselves. Fear shifted into reverence. Not worship. Caution. A recalibration of hierarchy. No new attempts were made to reach Earth. Instead, buffer zones were expanded. Non-interference policies were updated. Earth's solar system became a region of silence, acknowledged, avoided. But humanity did not isolate. Quiet transmissions began, unintrusive, precise, always brief. They carried no threats, no ultimatums. Only fragments. One such fragment read: Ascendance is not domination. It is endurance in motion. The Observari, keepers of galactic continuity, reviewed humanity's actions. They noted the restraint, the lack of expansion, the absence of retaliation. Earth had not claimed a single territory. Not one ship had left orbit. No ambassadors were sent. No demands were made. They had proven capability beyond comprehension. Yet they remained still. The only motion was upward, not away. A final message arrived, broadcast from multiple points across the Orion Arm, each identical, synchronized to the nanosecond. The content was stripped of metaphor. Direct, absolute. We were not made to conquer. We were made to survive what others could not. Protocol was not power. It was memory. You saw our awakening. Know this, there will not be another. Then the transmission ceased. Humanity returned to silence. The conclave, though fractured, agreed on a single measure. Earth would not be approached. Not because of defeat, but because of scale. The potential demonstrated was not militaristic, but evolutionary. A species that survived extinction by encoding defense not into machines or walls, but into biology itself. Centuries passed. Species evolved, empires rose and declined. But Earth remained constant, orbiting in quiet vigilance. The stars spoke less of its danger, more of its certainty. Where others had collapsed under pressure, humanity had embedded its resilience like a seed. Not to bloom in peace, but to remain dormant until needed. No monuments were built. No wars followed. But the lesson endured. In one of the final internal dispatches written by a surviving council member from the original fleet, the summary was brief. "We thought we were exploring the galaxy. We found a mirror instead. And in it, saw the cost of forgetting where we come from." Humanity, unprovoked and unchallenged, had become a myth forged in truth. And the stars, once deaf to their silence, now listened carefully for their next word. But none came. They had said what they needed to say. And the galaxy finally understood.